I'll speak from the perspective of infrastructure because I'm heavily an infrastructure person basically. I think India is at a tipping point where the breadth of vision that the current government has put forward with the sincerity to implementation, to actually do the vision, convert it into implementation, is so clear that there are going to be so many opportunities coming up. Just as an example, if you look at some of the big project, let's say the missions which are being looked at, you've got smart cities, you've got the whole Ganga program, Nirmal Ganga, you've got Make in India. Now, if you just look at these 100 cities to be developed, you're going to have opportunities for developing water supply, sanitation. There's going to be a lot of focus on education. I think today is a very important day for girl child education in India, right as we speak. In all these things, as the government is framing together its policies for how to really build a pipeline of bankable projects, which was what is missing in the last few years, they're actually focusing on that. When you have a pipeline of bankable projects coming up, that's going to attract investment because people are going to invest in projects which are bankable, which can give them a return. And so you're going to have a lot of projects coming up in urban areas, in urban areas. You've got the rural scheme being developed in Ganga projects. So I think from an infrastructure, and there's also a lot of focus being done, of course, as you can see with the power minister here, on rejuvenating the power sector. Now that's going to throw up enormous opportunities, and I think India, infrastructure-wise, is probably going to be the world's biggest infrastructure market in the next 15, 20, 30 years. Not just for building things, but actually to run them. That's a lot of opportunity. So it's not just, I'm not just talking about consumption, I'm actually talking about productive investment in infrastructure, which I think is critical to making the Indian economy one of the biggest in the world. So I'm very optimistic about it right now, very optimistic. Well, I think, if you just look at the fundamental aspects of what drives India, you've got a huge and emerging consuming population. Now, people call it the middle class. I don't want to call it that because the class is always changing. But what's essentially happening is the number of people with income, disposable income to spend, and therefore changing lifestyle habits is basically driving the economy. Now, what that means is consumption for goods, whether it's consumer goods, foods, etc. Consumption of things like automobiles, consumption of lifestyle goods such as clothes and shoes, etc. All of these are being driven by the growth in the disposable incomes. Now what this means is that there's a huge demand for goods. Now, do you make these in India or do you import them from abroad? Now, given that the Prime Minister himself has focused on the Make in India campaign, and given that different states are all competing to come up with areas where they will provide good infrastructure, good land space, invite manufacturing industry to come in there. This is a huge fillip. So you've got on one side a great demand and growing, billion people in India with a huge number of consuming classes. And on the other side, you've got supply bottlenecks being sorted out. That was always the problem in India, supply bottlenecks. People always said the ease of doing business in India is very low. The Prime Minister said he wants it to be one of the top 10 in the world. Now, if that sort of commitment is there, and you're going to have the ability for people to come in and manufacture in India, especially for domestic, but also to serve the region of Asia, which is, I think, going to be a big area, I think you've got enormous opportunities in anything. It could be paper and pulp, it could be shoes, it can be consumer goods, fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG. So I think there's tremendous potential. But I think the biggest potential is going to be in a lot of infrastructure-related activities. Just because there's going to be so much demand. So whether it is catering to high-speed rail and bringing in a lot of production of things like wagons into India, I think that's going to be not just in terms of quantity, but in terms of the price points. It's going to be a huge industry. I think pharmaceuticals is at a tipping point to move on to the next level in terms of the research and development and value-added stuff. So I think in almost every sector, India's building its competitive advantage to compete globally. I think we've got a very exciting, I would say, 6 to 8 months in which these policies are going to get sorted out to see which industries are going to benefit. Davos is essentially a fundamentally important area for exchange of ideas and information. Certainly it is to drive the profile of a country and the opportunities that are coming up there. But apart from the center, the core of the Congress and the meetings there, are all the meetings on the sidelines. Because they're real discussions about impactful projects is done. So just this morning we had a discussion separately with a number of people from India and the United Nations talking about something to do with one of the infrastructure sectors, which is leading to a very important outcome, let's say. So, and I see it increasingly everywhere. This year, if anything, I see the interest in India from the global community, the opportunities in India, and the general appetite for global investors and companies to come to India so much stronger that you can see it in the discussions we're having, in the meetings we've had, and in the request for more discussions. So, our meetings were scheduled 2-3 days ago, and literally we had like 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So it seems very tangible that Davos this year is going to be even more productive in terms of the India profile and building a strong investor interest in India. So I think it's been an extremely useful year, certainly for India.